A country's legal system can seem, well, super complicated, right? Like this giant tangled web. But what if we thought about it differently? What if we looked at it like a structure, a building with a really clear plan? Today, that's what we're doing. We're going to explore the legal blueprint of a nation by understanding the laws of Papua New Guinea. So let's just jump right in with a huge question. How do you even start building a country's entire legal system? I mean, from scratch. Where do you possibly begin? Well, it's kind of like building a house, isn't it? You don't just start throwing up walls and hope for the best. You start with a blueprint, a master plan that lays out the foundation, the main structures, and the rules for everything that goes on inside. This blueprint is what provides the framework for the whole nation. So let's start with the absolute most important piece of that plan, the nation's master blueprint. This is all about laying the foundation, and that foundation is the Constitution. Okay, so the Constitution. In Papua New Guinea, they call it the Mama Law, which is perfect because that's exactly what it is. It is the supreme, number one law. Think of it as the concrete foundation of our entire building. Every other law has to be built on top of it and has to agree with it. If some new law contradicts the Constitution, nope, it's thrown out. It's the ultimate boss. All right, so we've got our foundation. But, a master blueprint just gives you the main shape. It doesn't show you where every single pipe or electrical wire is supposed to go. For that, you need more detailed plans. And that's where we get into laying down the main systems using something called organic laws. And this is a really key thing to get. The Constitution, it's got all the big, amazing ideas, the grand vision for the country. But it doesn't spell out every little how-to step to make those ideas reality. And that's the job of organic laws. The Constitution might say, hey, we need free and fair elections. But how? The organic laws are the ones that actually build the systems for that, laying out proper rules for leaders, setting up strong local governments, and figuring out how political parties should work. Let me give you a really clear example so this clicks. Take the organic law on elections. It doesn't just say, go vote, no way. It gets into the nitty-gritty. It details exactly how votes are counted, who is even allowed to run for office, the whole process for nominations. It's basically the super detailed instruction manual for one of the most important pieces of the country's machinery. Okay, so foundations poured, the main plumbing and electrical systems are planned out. What's next? Well, now you need the rules for actually living in the house, right? And that brings us to the rules for everyday life, which are governed by acts of parliament. And this is a really, really important difference to understand. Remember those organic laws? They're like the major structural plans, so crucial that they need a special 2/3 majority vote in Parliament to get passed or changed. But acts of Parliament, they're more like the everyday house rules. They can be passed with just a simple majority vote. Yeah, you can really think of acts of Parliament as the workhorse laws of the country. These are the ordinary, everyday laws made by the national parliament that govern, well, pretty much everything else. We're talking traffic rules, education policies, business regulations, you name it. They fill in all the details of day-to-day life. But what happens when something comes up that isn't in the blueprint? A situation that none of the rule books seem to cover? This is where things get really interesting. Let's talk about what happens when no written rule exists, and the super important role of courts and something called common law. Okay, imagine this. A big company is careless, and because of their carelessness, someone gets seriously hurt. Now, that just feels wrong, doesn't it? You'd think someone should be held responsible for that. But here's the curveball. What if there's no specific written law, no act of parliament that says, if a company is careless and injures someone in this exact situation, they have to pay? What then? Does the injured person just have to walk away with nothing? No way. Absolutely not. And this is where common law saves the day. Common law is basically law that's made by judges to fill in those gaps. When a judge makes a decision in a brand new kind of case, that ruling sets a precedent. It becomes a guide for other judges to follow when similar cases pop up in the future. And don't think this is some obscure, dusty corner of the legal world. Common law principles cover huge, fundamental areas of our lives. The whole idea of negligence, that concept of being responsible for harm you cause through carelessness, that comes from common law. So do the basic rules for contracts, for trespass, even for defamation, when someone harms your reputation. Now, this can get a little confusing, so let's break it down. Think of it like this. A single judge's ruling, a judicial decision, that's like one leaf on a giant tree.
It's a specific ruling for one specific case. But common law? That's the entire tree. It's the whole body of principles built up from thousands of those leafy decisions over many, many years. It's basically the collected wisdom of the courts.
All right, we've looked at all the different parts. Let's zoom out now and see how they all fit together to create the complete legal system. So you see how it all clicks into place? You've got the foundational blueprint, the Constitution. Then the major structural plans, the organic laws. You have the daily House rules in the Acts of Parliament. And finally, you have the judge-made gap fillers in the common law. Every single piece has its own vital role in the nation's structure. And here it is, the whole shebang in one picture. You can see that hierarchy we've been talking about, right? At the very top, the Supreme Constitution. Below that, the structural organic laws. And then the everyday acts of Parliament. This chart actually shows a couple of other cool layers, like subordinate legislation. Those are the super detailed regulations made by government departments. And customary law, which are the traditional rules of local communities. It all comes together to form the complete legal blueprint for Papua New Guinea. And all this leaves us with one final big thought. You know, a blueprint for a house is usually set in stone, but a nation? A nation is alive. It's always changing. So the real question isn't just what the blueprint is, but how might a nation's legal blueprint need to adapt and bend and evolve over time to build an even better future?